Can you actually live off of $1,500 a month? I'm 44 years old and I moved back home to start over. And I went from spending anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 per month to now $1,500. In today's video, I want to open up my bank account to show you exactly where every dollar goes when you're in survival mode. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how did I go from spending $4,000 to $6,000 per month to now $1,500? Probably less than $1,500 the last time I checked. Here's what happens. I lived in Long Beach, California. It was a dream of mine to live near the beach. And I finally found my dream place that I thought was 2 blocks away. I was in a very affluent area. It was very nice. However, I was spending about $2,250 per month on rent, which was actually quite affordable. But here's the issue. I had noisy neighbors. It was so noisy. It literally was affecting my mental health. I could not function. I could not work. I could not sleep. I could not relax. I did not feel like I was at home. And to be quite frank with you, paying that much money per month to be miserable was just, for me, a waste of money. And the reason why I was spending anywhere between 4 to 6K was not just with expenses for my business, but also for self-care. So I found myself always wanting to pour back into myself. What this looked like was me going to the spa every month, getting massages, me getting my nails done, my toes done, me getting my eyebrows done. My hair appointments were very expensive and I was doing that every 2 weeks. So I did spend a lot of money on self-care and upkeep. And then I enjoyed going to the movies. I would go to the movies literally multiple times a month. So when you add all of that up, it's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month and just pouring back into myself. And then when you count the business expenses, me paying off my medical debt at that time, as well as the utility bills and groceries, which would be $400 to $500 a month because at that time I was still vegan, pescatarian, and I eat very clean. And so now I'm in an environment where I'm not as tempted to shop. It's very secluded. We live in a gated community here. It's about 20 minutes to the nearest large town. And it's a space where I feel like, you know what, it actually forced me to save because of the environment that I'm in. In LA, there's so much activity, so much going on. When you live here in the suburbs, very closed off, there's not a lot of activity to do unless I drive somewhere to do that. And so the luxury of going to a spa or going to the movies or spending a ton of money at Trader Joe's is now gone. What I'm doing now is I'm now investing in my future and it's worth it for me. So now let's talk about the second thing. So the move, relocating to rebuild. That was a very tough decision. The funny thing is in 2022, I actually moved home for my sabbatical year. I was just reading on threads yesterday where a lady stated, what are some of the things that I need to do for myself when I turn 40? Anyone over 40 have suggestions? And every single person over 40 said, make sure you take a sabbatical year. I never knew this. I just went with what my body and my mind told me to do. So I'm glad at the age of 40 that I took a sabbatical year, and that was in 2022. So this wasn't the first time that I relocated. However, this time I have a strategy and a plan. For me, living alone, the math just wasn't mathing. Even though I was making a good amount of money, my expenses was very high. And so I found myself constantly paying the bills and doing all those things, but not having enough to really invest and pay myself back. And so that was the biggest struggle. It was me trying to tackle debt and pay expenses, and there was no money left over to really build my financial wealth. So moving back home provided me with the stability that I need to really focus on my goals. And for me this year is to be debt-free and to really start investing and building that financial wealth through my retirement accounts, my brokerage accounts, as well as my high yield savings accounts. Now let's go ahead and look at the survival breakdown. Now, if you are in survival mode right now and you're over the age of 40, this is exactly what I'm doing. So feel free to ask me questions, copy exactly what I'm doing because I'm telling you, it's working wonders. So the first thing is this. I want you to make a list of all your necessities. This is exactly what I did. I broke down everything that I needed to spend per month. So, your toothpaste, your hygiene, your basics, everything that is a necessity for you to survive. Those are the things that you are going to be budgeting for. So, that's number one. The second thing is your business. What are the necessary business expenses? So, for me, I made sure that I had my essential equipment. Earlier this year, I created a budget for myself to buy all of the equipment that I needed to film YouTube. I also focused on my environment. I'll go ahead and link that video above if you want to watch it. But I went over less than $1,000. I decorated my entire environment in my room. I purchased a new mic and I made sure that I was comfortable in my environment. So make sure that you do the same thing where you're not just spending whatever, but you're budgeting and you're being strategic with how much you're spending for your business essentials. And so that's also going to include supplies as well as your phone bill. Now, what I started to do is I understood that my expenses altogether, business and personal, were less than $1,500. So I made sure that I cut it down below that. If I get a miscellaneous charge or here and there, I make sure that I have enough wiggle room to where it's not going to go over that $1,500 threshold. So for you, the best thing is to figure out what is going to be your maximum amount of money you want to spend per month. Now, everyone's situation is different. I get it. Not everyone has the ability to move back home or to save money in the way that I'm saving. However, whatever it is that you do, make sure that you have that budgeting goal set and you do not hit over that goal per month. So what I started to do then was, now that I have wiggle room and not spending so much money on rent, groceries, and all the other things, I started to prioritize my debt repayment. And that is how I was able to tackle over $10,000 in debt in the last month and a half, as well as save up to $10,000 in my high yield savings in such a short amount of time, because I wasn't spending that $4,000 to $6,000 per month on rent and bills. Anything else that I make outside of that $1,500 goes directly to my debt repayment plan, and it also goes into my investment accounts as well as my high yield savings. Now, I have a strategy in how I'm doing each of those and I'm tackling them all. There's some months where I focus heavily on debt, and then once I hit certain markers and goals, then I move over to focus on investment and I add more money to my investment accounts. Then once that is in a certain recurring momentum, then I move back to my high yield savings. So I have a strategy that I've worked out and I just follow my plan. Every single dollar in expenses goes towards my exit strategy. Now, my exit strategy is this: have at least minimum of $30,000 in my high yield savings account. Realistically, I would like to have about $50,000, and then have a steady amount of money going towards my Roth IRA, my SEP IRA, and hopefully maxing out both of those accounts. So in 2026, this year right now, I'm focused on debt. I want to be debt free. That is my number one thing. Once I am debt free, the second goal is every single year to max out my retirement accounts. And then in addition to that, I'm going to be investing heavily and having a very aggressive strategy when it comes to investments, because I feel like I'm playing catch up. And so I'm just sharing that with you, being transparent. That's the exact strategy that I'm doing in order to build financial freedom. So with all that being said, this isn't about being broke. It's about being focused. I'm sacrificing my right now for my forever. And if you really want to get to a place where you feel confident and comfortable in your finances, there's going to have to be some sacrifices, whether that's sacrificing, going out on the weekends, buying coffee every morning, paying for, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that is not a necessity. You have to be able to pull back from that and pretty much reallocate that funding to somewhere else that's going to actually be paying you back in dividends in the future. If you can do that, I'm telling you, you're going to be on the right track to building financial wealth. And so if you are in a season that you are starting over, I really hope that this video resonates. Go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. Tell me what you're focusing on in this season when it comes to your finances. Don't be afraid to come up with a survival budget. I believe the people who are not worried about what other people are thinking, the individuals who are focused on their future and not worried about the sacrifices that they have to make right now, are the ones who are going to win the long game. So don't be afraid to budget, stick with it, and you'll thank yourself in the future for it. All right, well, that's what I have for you today. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me for another Daily Dose with Dupay. My name is Dupay Aleru, and I am just here sharing with you guys my journey of starting over at the age, I started over at 43. I'm 44 now, and I'll be 45 next month. So this has been an incredible journey, and there's just so much to share. I just can't wait. I'm just getting started. So be sure to subscribe, because we're going to start kicking things up a little bit more throughout the summer as I really go in on my financial plan. So until next time, I hope that you all have a beautiful and blessed day.